An old man named Shouzou Saitou asks his wife Ine Saitou what they'd do if they were young again. Shouzou mentioned how they were too poor for a honeymoon when they got married, but Ine was just happy being with him. They went to see an apple tree they planted 60 years ago to celebrate their wedding. Despite being damaged by a typhoon, the tree survived and even had a golden apple on it now. That night, Shouzou saw himself young in the mirror and quickly called for Ine, who was young too. Shouzou excitedly decides to finally take that honeymoon trip they never had right then. Later, their granddaughter Mino visited and was shocked to see them young. She quickly got used to it, even liking her grandpa's new long hair. She told her dad about it, but he didn't understand what she meant. At a cricket game, their friends missed Shouzou and Ine, but were surprised to see them young and energetic. The women were impressed by Shouzou's cricket skills, and the men were surprised by how cute Ine looked serving them tea. A few days before, Shouzou argued with his son Yoshiaki. Yoshiaki wanted them to move in with him because they were getting older, but Shouzou wanted to stay at their home, passed down for generations. Ine told her daughter-in-law Kaede it was okay, as long as she was with Shouzou. Back to the present. When Kaede visited them with some ingredients, she was surprised to see a young Shouzou and left the room blushing. Later, Yoshiaki was trying to understand how his parents became young again. Yoshiaki finally got what Mino said in the car before. Mino really admired her grandpa, who was now young and nice. She even had a fun game called Grandpa Barrier, which made everyone laugh. But Kaede claims that Mino shouldn't play like that, even if it was just make-believe. As they about to go home, Ine noticed her son Yoshiaki looked really tired from work. She gently patted his head, making him feel like a little boy again. Even Mino wants some pats from Ine. As a big sports event between two towns is about to start, everyone was worried because their team was mostly older people, and the other town have two young boys, Shota and Daiki Igarashi. But when they saw Shouzou, now young and strong, they cheered up, thinking they could actually win this time. The competition started, and even though it was tough at first, Ine cheered with pom-poms, and Shouzou felt so pumped up he helped their team win a game. They kept winning, beating the other town in every game. Because Shouzou and Ine knew each other so well, they effortlessly win the game working together. The other town wasn't happy about losing. Grandpa Igarashi from the other town was especially upset because he used to like Ine a long time ago. Now he felt like Shouzou is stealing his happiness again. Ine decided to visit the Igarashi family with some lunch she prepared, since Shouzou was busy being celebrated. As they ate, she talked about old times, even mentioning that Grandpa Igarashi once told her he liked her when they were young. This surprised the Igarashi grandkids, making them see their grandpa in a new light. Next day, Grandpa Igarashi asked Shota to take a thank you gift over to Ina's house. Shota got all nervous when Mino opened the door and invited him inside. Sitting with a tea, Shota couldn't find the words to speak. Even though talking was hard for him, Mino was always so cheerful around him. Meanwhile, Kaede and Ine were secretly watching them. Kaede started worrying about the future, like Mino getting a boyfriend or even getting married one day. But Shouzou was excited at the thought of having great-grandkids. Talking to Shouzou, Shota found him really nice, but felt a bit overwhelmed by the attention from Ine and Kaede. As the adults tried to learn more about him, Mino said lots of nice things about Shota, like how smart and athletic he is. This made Ine and Kaede whisper to each other, trying to figure out if Shota would be a good match for Mino. Shouzou asked Shota if he liked any girls, but Ine quickly changed the subject. After saying goodbye, Mino wished she could have talked to Shota more, leaving Shouzou with a secret he felt nervous about. Later, Mino learned her grandma Ine was the one who confessed to Shouzou first. Their love story was special, because they married for love, which wasn't common back then. Shouzou's dad wanted him to marry someone else for the sake of tradition. But after a big fight and thinking about running away, Shouzou and Ine stayed strong together. Ine even faced the girl Shouzou's dad wanted him to marry, telling her she'd never let her have Shouzou. Hearing this, Mino wanted to act out that scene with Ine. She did it, and this made Shouzou and Mino admire Ine even more, seeing how cool she was. Two schoolboys are chatting about how farming isn't cool and is for old people. They dream of moving to Tokyo to make big money and maybe find girlfriends. But then they see Ine, who is surprisingly young and not the old lady they expected to see here. Ine greets the boys warmly, making them blush. Just then, Shouzou pulls up in his minivan to pick up Ine, greeting the boys too. This makes the boys change their minds about farming. Now they think it might be cool after all. Shouzou remembers how Ine once eyed a dress in a flyer, but was too shy to ask for it. Fast forward to now, Shouzou surprises Ine with that dress as a gift. She's so happy that she gives Shouzou a cute hug from behind to thank him. That evening, the couple watches a romance show recommended by Mino. Shouzou finds the kissing scene a bit too much, But Ine is curious and shyly asks Shouzou to try a kabadan, a move where he pins her against the wall. It's something she never experienced when they were young. Shouzou goes for it, and although Ine says she feels nothing because they've been together for 50 years, her heart is secretly racing. Later, Ine's old friend Katja comes over. Mino struggles with Katja's thick accent, but Ine steps in and chats easily with her. Katja then jokes about Mino marrying his grandson, but Ine protectively hugs Mino, saying she's not ready to let her go yet, causing Mino to playfully ask Shouzou if she can marry Ine instead. That night, Ine's granddaughter Shiori is staying over because she had a fight with her dad. He wants her to go into medicine just like him, but she's struggling with her studies. Ine comforts her, saying no matter what happens, she will always cherish her adorable granddaughter. Ine remembers how Shouzou always supported her when she gets sick, imagining taking her to the beach in a swimsuit. Now, young again, Ine thinks about what swimsuit Shouzou would like, but feels shy about wearing one in public. Shiori encourages her, saying she should go for it, since she is now young and pretty again. Flustered, Ine excuses herself to prepare dinner, leaving Shiori to think about her advice. Later, Ine gets a phone call from someone claiming to be Yoshiaki, her son, asking her for money. But Ine knows it's a scammer and record the call and humorously playing along with him. The next day, they watch the news and see the man who tried to scam her get arrested. Ine then notes that calls around 6 are usually suspicious. Ine discovers she doesn't need glasses anymore to see clearly, and Mino finds it incredible. Mino asks Ine to read some words in the newspaper, pointing out words that make Ine say Shouzou is awesome, making them both blush. Ine then turns it back on Mino, making her say something embarrassing too. While watching TV, Mino sees a couple holding hands and asks Ine if she and Shouzou have ever held hands. Ine says they never did it just to show off, and Shouzou adds that when they got old, holding hands was more about helping each other walk. Later, when they go out to buy vegetables, it gets cold. Shouzou notices Ine isn't wearing gloves. He wants to hold her hand but feels shy because he doesn't want Mino to see. Ine is upset that Shouzou didn't catch her hint to hold hands, but she eventually grabs his hand when she notices him reaching out. They then visit their son Takahiro's clinic and tell him they've magically turned young. Takahiro is shocked but runs some tests and confirms it. He recalls how he became a doctor to save Ine from liver cancer, feeling helpless as he watched her grow older and weaker. Now, seeing his mother young and healthy makes Takahiro tear up with joy, feeling like his hard work has finally paid off, even though he didn't cause the change. We then flash back to when Shouzou and Ine first planted their wedding anniversary tree. Years later, a typhoon damaged it, but they fixed it, refusing to let it die, and it grew a golden apple, which she shared the apple with Shouzou later, having a strange feeling that the tree was telling her to eat it. After that, Ine dreams of the tree thanking them and turned into dust. Then an hourglass signifying her age gets turned upside down, and when she wakes up, she is young. Same for Shouzou. Today is their 58th anniversary, and Ine finds a surprise cake in the fridge that Shouzou bought. They both blushing really hard, enjoying the cake together, happy and young again. Shouzou tells Ine he started working on the farm right after elementary school and doesn't remember much about studying. Ine shares that she went to a girls' school in Tokyo, which felt like a dream with endless white rice and running water. However, the war changed everything, and they had to return to the countryside, which felt like a punishment because of all the mud. But meeting Shouzou made the tough times bearable. Shouzou is curious about Ine's life in Tokyo, but Ine decides to keep some stories a secret. Later, they sit with Shiori, who shows them a video game console that's supposed to help prevent dementia. Shouzou is surprised to see it's a zombie game. Shiori doubted her grandparents could handle video games, but they quickly adapt and play like pros, headshotting zombies because they want to minimize their suffering. After a few days of non-stop gaming, they finish the entire game. Mino then visits and is excited to see Shiori, rushing to hug her. But Shiori coldly asks her to stop, revealing that their relationship has cooled. Mino feels hurt and mentions how much Shiori loves her grandparents, living with them. Shiori admits she acts out of obligation, not love, which Shouzou overhears, making him very sad. Mino insists Shiori apologize to Shouzou. Shiori does apologize, confessing she truly loves her grandparents. That night, Shouzou dreams about the hourglass again. A recurring dream since regaining his youth. He accidentally tips over the hourglass, and Shouzou wakes up old again. He worries that Ine might not love him as much now he's not young. Ine reassures him that she loves him no matter what because he is the same Shouzou to her. Shouzou realizes being old isn't bad. It's just a part of life they've lived together. They visit Takahiro's clinic, where he warns them not to overexert themselves due to signs of aging in their kidneys and liver. He's concerned about Ine's youthful body and what will happen if it ages suddenly. Ine isn't afraid of dying but worries about outliving Shouzou and her sons. Despite these worries, Shouzou is full of energy. He and Yoshiaki arm wrestle. Yoshiaki tries to take it easy on him, but when he promises Shouzou a room with an outdoor bath for their honeymoon if he wins, Shouzou gets really excited and wins several rounds. At the market, Shouzou notices people staring because he looks much older than Ine. Feeling awkward, Shouzou tells a store employee they are shopping with their granddaughter, but Ine quickly corrects him, saying she's his wife. She's not upset, but wants everyone to know the truth. Ine asks Shouzou why he lied. She tells him she only wants to be known as his wife. Shouzou apologizes and, trying to lighten the mood, points out some sweets they used to enjoy when they were younger. He mentions Ine stopped eating them in front of him because she worries about his health. When he offers her some, she declines, saying she's not hungry. After Shouzou walks away, Ine secretly starts eating the sweets. Shouzou catches her, and Ine is embarrassed. Shouzou tells her not to worry about him so much, and that seeing her happy eating sweets is the best medicine for him. They share a sweet moment, and Ine opens up about her tough past. She tells Shouzou about losing her parents and living with distant relatives who didn't understand her and mocked her Tokyo accent. She felt alone until Shouzou approached her one day at the local shrine and offered her food without judging her. And over the days, Ine notices Shouzou starts visiting her a lot, and she wonders how a guy without much education can win her heart. Back in the present, they sit together, and Ine tells Shouzou he has completely won her heart over the years. That night, Shouzou dreams about the magical hourglass again. He deduces if he turns the hourglass, he will turn young again, and he notices some sand leaking out of the glass. Sure enough, when he wakes up, he finds himself young again. Ine is calm about it, which surprises him. They discuss whether they will stop aging or even die since they keep turning young. Shouzou explains that the hourglass will eventually run out of sand, and they will age again. He reassures Ine that no matter what, he will never leave her. They embrace, feeling secure in their love, regardless of what the future holds. Two boys are flipping through a sports car magazine and complaining about how there are no cool sports cars in their countryside town. Just then, they meet Ine, who kindly asks them to take a detour tomorrow because the farm is scheduled to be sprayed with chemicals. The boys are charmed by Ine and thank her for the heads up. Just then, Shouzou drives by in his sprayer tractor, which looked like a sports car, and greets the boys. Amazed, the boys joke that maybe there is a sports car in the countryside after all. Later, Shota asks Shouzou to help clear out his grandpa's storehouse. Despite Igarashi isn't happy to see Shouzou, he accepts his help. The storehouse is packed with antiques passed down through the Igarashi family, but Grandpa Igarashi plans to throw everything away. While sorting through the items, Shota discovers a nagamochi, a traditional storage trunk with the family crest. This reminds Grandpa Igarashi of his late wife, and he asks to be alone for a while. Shouzou and Shota step outside, and Shota calls someone who might take care of the antiques they've cleared out. Shouzou then asks Igarashi what he plans to do with the storehouse. Igarashi says he intends to demolish it, as there aren't many people left who can maintain it, and his sons don't plan to take over the farm. Shouzou and Shota then have a heart-to-heart about Shota's future. Shota confesses his dream of moving to Tokyo to become a professional soccer player, but he also feels that taking over his grandpa's farm wouldn't be so bad. He worries that turning his back on the place that raised him would feel wrong. Overhearing this, Grandpa Igarashi is moved to tears and decides to cancel the demolition. Shouzou is also touched by how thoughtful Shota is, and even Igarashi feels embarrassed for crying in front of Shouzou. Meanwhile, in the library, Shiori regrets telling Shouzou it's impossible for him to tutor her since he never finished high school. Surprisingly, she notices Shouzou is also in the library. Curious, she spies on him and sees that he is studying high school textbooks. Shiori remembers that Ine once told her Shouzou didn't avoid high school because he didn't want to go, but because family issues made it impossible. This inspires Shiori to study harder, and she ends up placing 9th on her midterms. She thanks Shouzou for motivating her, which confuses him. Later, Mino overhears her friends talking about a beautiful couple at the farm, referring to Ine and Shouzou. When they ask Mino if she knows them, she denies it and quickly says goodbye, knowing they wouldn't believe her if she told them the truth about who they were. Mino then goes to study with Shota at a restaurant. She asks him if he has done something nice for Shouzou recently, because Shouzou has been saying a lot of nice things about Shota. Shota denies doing anything special. Mino then shares that she thinks a marriage like Shouzou and Ine's is wonderful, and asks if Shota would listen to her troubles. He agrees, but quickly excuses himself to the bathroom, reminding himself this is just a study session, not a date. Later, Mino tells Ine and Shouzou about a cultural festival at her school, and Ine gets excited about the idea of going with Shouzou. However, Shouzou remembers he has a busy schedule and can't attend. Ine decides she won't go either. But Shouzou realizes he made a mistake. The appointments he thought he had are actually the week after next. He asks Ine if she'd like to go to the festival after all, and she excitedly accepts. At the festival, Shouzou notices how happy Ine seems, looking forward to the event, Suddenly, a group of students surrounds them, and one accidentally spills a drink on Ine. The student apologizes and offers Ine fresh clothes from the fashion design club. The club members dress Ine up in a school uniform, amazed at how well it suits her. Outside, Shouzou recalls a conversation with Ine about her love for music and how she used to play various instruments, feeling a bit sad that he couldn't witness those performances. When Ine finishes changing, Shouzou walks into the room and is stunned to see her in the school uniform. They enjoy festival foods together in the classroom, and Ine can't help but revert to her old high school demeanor while dressed in the uniform. Shouzou and Ine engage in playful banter, pretending they are high school students meeting for the first time. Shouzou teases Ine by asking if she likes someone. She replies, "None," surprising Shouzou. Ine then laughs and teases Shouzou about his weak Riz game. They visit Mino's class, which is set up as a maid cafe. The cafe isn't very busy because the class next door got help from a renowned ramen chef, drawing most of the crowd. Shota suggests using Shouzou to attract more customers, especially the older ladies. Dressed in a handsome butler outfit, Shouzou helps increase the cafe's popularity, with many older customers coming to see him serve tea. Afterwards, Shouzou and Ine explore the school history section. Ine spots some of her former classmates in the photo display. This prompts Shouzou to reflect on his father's decision to have him give up studying to become a farmer, as he is the eldest son. He isn't saddened by this memory, feeling grateful instead, because it led him to Ine and their marriage, which makes Ine blush. Students around them record this sweet moment. Later, Shota looks for an opportunity to ask Mino to join him at the bonfire. When Shouzou notices Shota waiting, he tactfully pulls Ine away to give Shota his chance. Though Ine was looking forward to watching Mino dance around the bonfire, Shouzou advises her that it's best not to intrude too much on their granddaughters. That night, Ine experiences the hourglass dream again. She accidentally trips and hits her head on the hourglass, breaking it. When Shouzou wakes up, he finds himself old again but doesn't immediately realize it. He greets Ine, who has lost all her memories of Shouzou and appears in her 20s with black hair, leaving Shouzou utterly stunned. In an effort to understand Ine's unexpected memories lost, Shouzou sits down with her to discuss her situation. Ine explains that she woke up to find the world had advanced almost a century, and noticing the ring on her finger, she believes Shouzou is indeed her husband. Curious about their past, she asks Shouzou if she was the one who proposed to him, to which he confirms, adding to her surprise. Ine suggests that Shouzou should try to make her fall in love with him again, so they could return to their normal life again. Shouzou begins by introducing Ine to modern conveniences, like a rice cooker that cooks rice to perfection, which delights Ine because she had never tasted such well-prepared rice before. At dinner, she appreciates that despite the advancements in time, people still value good food and is pleased to learn that soy sauce is now more readily available. When it comes to cleaning up after dinner, Ine is surprised to see Shouzou doing the dishes, a task uncommon for men in her time. Shouzou explains that he learned to do household chores because his father was often drunk and domineering, something Shouzou vowed never to emulate. Ine is impressed by Shouzou's dedication to household duties without expecting anything in return. That night, Shouzou attempts to explain to Ine about the hourglass dreams, but she finds it confusing. Shouzou suggests she rest and promises that she might understand better after seeing the hourglass in the morning. The next morning, Ine sees a younger version of Shouzou, which confuses her further since she still does not remember him. This deeply saddens Shouzou, who had hoped she would recognize him. Despite not remembering his voice or appearance, Ine feels sad seeing Shouzou distressed. To help jog her memory, Shouzou shows Ine family photos, which makes her feel guilty, fearing the pain her memory loss might cause their family. Just then, they hear Mino's voice. Remembering that Mino and her family are visiting, Shouzou quickly tells Ine to pretend to be the grandmother she once was, despite her memory loss and a different accent. Ine agrees, determined to protect her family from sadness. As the Yoshiaki family arrives, Shouzou interacts cheerfully, claiming to be in good condition. When Yoshiaki comments on Ine's unusual accent, Shouzou covers for her by saying Ine is just reminiscing her high school days, saving her from suspicion. While spending time with Mino, Ine feels joy seeing how kind and sweet her granddaughter is. She hugs Mino tightly, saying she's adorable, and when Yoshiaki jokingly asks if it's time to let go, Ine playfully says no. However, when it's time to cook, Ine struggles and frantically chops the ingredients because she has forgotten how to cook too. Shouzou steps in to help, patiently teaching her how to cut vegetables. As Shouzou holds Ine's hands to guide her, she feels a strange nostalgia and starts to get an idea of how she managed to learn how to cook in the past. During dinner, Mino comments on the large chunks of potatoes in the curry. In response, Shouzou buys Ine a vegetable peeler, which she uses enthusiastically all day. The scene shifts to a memory where Yoshiaki, as a child, got a perfect score on an exam, and Ine praised his hard work. But in the present, Yoshiaki's boss stresses that hard work isn't enough. He needs to give more to his job. That night, while Mino sleeps, Yoshiaki confides in his parents that his company is likely going bankrupt. Shouzou offers him a job at the apple orchard, but Yoshiaki feels he shouldn't burden them with his problems, believing he could improve if he followed his boss's advice more intensely. Ine comforts Yoshiaki, advising him not to overdo it because if his bosses are taking advantage of his efforts and kindness, he'll always end up in the same situation. She reassures him that she will always be there for him if things don't work out. Surprised by her understanding, Yoshiaki, after a few drinks, vents about his boss's expectations. In his drunken state, he notices that Ine's gestures, looks, and words remind him more of the mother from his childhood than the mother he knew in recent years. This realization makes Ine aware that her past self might not match up to the Ine everyone else knew. The next day, Shouzou hopes to help Ine regain some memories by taking her to a special place where she once confessed her love to him. Unfortunately, Ine still doesn't remember anything from that day, which leads her to ask Shouzou to recreate the moment in hopes it might trigger her memory. As they sit together, Shouzou tells her that she was the one who made the first move by touching his hand. Ine got really nervous as she tried to touch Shouzou's hand, but it just made her feel like everything was a lie. This made her body tingle all over. They left the place, but she still couldn't remember. Later, in a hospital, Ine saw an elderly woman in a wheelchair who was her older sister. A flashback showing how her sister took care of Ine on stormy days. Ine tried to talk to her sister, but her sister didn't remember her, showing how cruel time can be. Ine didn't expect her sister to forget her. Even though Shouzou was by her side, she felt weird because she didn't remember him and didn't want comfort from someone she didn't really know. Ine held onto Shouzou's clothes to feel less alone, but funny enough, Shouzou needed to go to the bathroom right then and couldn't leave. Later, they saw Ine's sister by the hospital piano. Ine said her sister was really good at playing it. Even though a nurse said she never heard her play, just watching the keys. Ine decided to play a special song her sister taught her, hoping it might help her sister remember. Her sister finally remembered the song and started playing it with Ine. Even though her sister didn't recognize her, she complimented Ine's piano skills, which made Ine cry. They continued playing, and both Shouzou and the nurse were moved by their reunion. Weeks later, Ine was alone for dinner because Shouzou had to return some machines and would be late. Ine realized this was the first time she was alone and started thinking about the past weeks and how Shouzou had explained modern life to her. She wondered if Shouzou's presence was enough to make her completely happy, feeling restless. Finally, when she remembered her husband, the broken hourglass began repairing itself, and all her memories came back. She remembered confessing her love to Shouzou when she was 16, and how her relatives didn't approve of their relationship. Shouzou had fought with his father to see her again, but Ine got very sick. Shouzou paid for her treatment, even though she tried to push him away. Shouzou promised to always love her and be by her side, and they kept that promise. When she heard the door, Ine ran to greet Shouzou, happy that her memories and her beloved had returned, and even her hair had returned to how it was. The next day, at the shrine together, Ine asked Shouzou how he could be so calm. Shouzou explained that he loved Ine the same, whether she had memories or not. Ine, feeling happy and loved, blushed and placed her hand on Shouzou's. Shouzou and Ine are super excited to go to Tokyo for their honeymoon. They plan to take a sleeper train, where they can play card games and enjoy some drinks during the ride. But Shota gives them a surprising update. Sleeper trains aren't around anymore, and now they can take bullet trains that get to Tokyo in just 3 hours. This shocks Ine and Shouzou because they remember when it took 8 hours to travel to Tokyo by train. Shota starts to wonder if he's the right person to help plan their honeymoon, but Mino assures him that he's doing great, especially since he knows Tokyo well. Shouzou thinks it would be fantastic if someone who knows Tokyo well could show them around. Suddenly, everyone starts looking at Shota. Mino even mentions she'd like to join if Shota is going. Feeling a bit cornered, Shota tries to say he's not their grandson to escape the situation. But Shouzou, being the ultimate wingman, whispers to him that if he comes, he'll get to have a romantic date in Tokyo with Mino. Shota decides to ask his grandpa for permission to go. When Shota asks Grandpa Igarashi, he initially refuses. So, Shouzou brings in Mino to help convince him. Mino introduces herself to Grandpa Igarashi and kindly asks if Shota can come with them on the trip. Igarashi, misunderstanding the situation, shouts excitedly that his grandson has brought home a bride and quickly agrees, asking Mino to take good care of Shota during the trip, which makes Shota and Mino blush. Later, Ine decides to buy some sweet potatoes from an old friend. She notices that the shop isn't getting many customers and learns from Kacha that her store might not last much longer. Ine comes up with a plan to help. She starts eating a sweet potato outside the store, and her good looks draw the attention of passersby who become curious and want to try some sweet potatoes too. Back in the day, Shouzou had to say goodbye to his friend who was moving to Tokyo. Now 60 years later, Shouzou finds himself at the same train station, about to start his own adventure to Tokyo. Yoshiaki, seeing his daughter Mino off, gives Shota a stern look and tells him to take good care of Mino. Shouzou and Ine are thrilled about their trip. They've never left their town before. Excitedly, they end up boarding the wrong train. But luckily, Mino and Shota catch them just in time. Once on the right train, Shouzou shares why they've made themselves look old again. They know about the senior discounts on trains, and they didn't want to look suspicious being young with discounts. They take a quick nap and wake up young again, which really surprises Shota by how strange it all seems. Their first stop in Tokyo is to visit their eldest daughter, Akemi. Meanwhile, Shota heads to his grandma's place. Akemi, while talking on the phone with Yoshiaki, can hardly believe her parents are actually coming to Tokyo, since Ine is usually too sick to travel. Unfortunately, Akemi has caught a cold herself, and she starts reminiscing about the times Ine took care of her when she was sick. When Ine arrives, Akemi is initially shocked, thinking she's imagining things. It takes them an hour to explain everything to Akemi, who then asks how Tokyo is. Shouzou and Ine begin sharing their first impressions of Tokyo with great excitement. Suddenly, they have visitors. It's their grandson Shinji, his wife Kazuko, and their son Kosuke. Everyone is shocked to see Shouzou and Ine looking so young. The room fills with laughter when they notice the striking resemblance between Shouzou and Shinji. The next day, Shouzou and Ine take the time to explain their situation to Akemi's family. Meanwhile, Shota and Mino decide to explore Shinjuku. Ine and Shouzou head off to Sugamo, a place known for its appeal to the older crowd. Shouzou gets super excited when he spots a belly band shop. The shop owner is thrilled to see a handsome young man like Shouzou interested in his merchandise, so he starts dressing him up in cool, old-fashioned clothes. This attracts a large group of older women who can't help but admire Shouzou's style. After the impromptu fashion show, they visit a cafe to enjoy some parfaits. Ine is absolutely glowing with excitement when she sees the dessert. Shouzou and Mino can't help but smile as Ine enjoys her parfait so much that she ends up eating the entire thing by herself. They head to an arcade next, where Mino tells them to take pictures in a photo booth. Since they've never done this before, their first attempt at posing is too formal. Mino steps in to show them how it's done by taking a sample photo with Shota. Inspired, they try again, and although Mino thinks it's only a slight improvement, they all end up having a lot of fun. Back at Akemi's house, Shouzou tries to bond with his grandson, Kosuke, by giving him some traditional spinning tops. However, Kosuke isn't interested in the old-fashioned toys, he wants a shiny new Beyblade. Shouzou challenges him to a battle. If Kosuke's Beyblade can beat his top, Shouzou will buy him a new one. Using his old man's strength, Shouzou let it rip and easily wins the battle, causing Kosuke to cry because he just lost to a yee-yee-ass looking top. So Shouzou ended up buying Kosuke a new Beyblade anyway. That evening, Akemi has a heartfelt conversation with Ine. She apologizes for moving to Tokyo and not being there to take care of Ine when she was sick. Ine reassures her daughter, telling her not to worry because she's doing fine now. Meanwhile, at Shouzou's house, Shiori feels lonely without her grandparents around. She misses them terribly, and fears that their time together might be coming to an end soon. Her emotions are so strong that it seems like Ine and Shouzou can feel her longing, almost like a phone signal reaching them. The next day, a talent agent approaches Ine, asking if she'd be interested in joining their agency. Remembering Shota's warning about such offers, Shouzou and Ine argue with the agent and firmly refuse his proposition. On the train ride back home, Shouzou and Ine explain to Shota what happened with the talent agent. They even told the agent that they're actually 80 years old, which quickly made him lose interest and leave. Everyone finally made it to Atami, a special place for the grandparents. They were moved to tears, realizing they finally were on a proper honeymoon trip together. They wanted to make memories, so their first visit was to a beautiful Japanese hotel with an expensive open-air bath. When Ine and Mino decided to go for a bath, Ine whispered to Shouzou not to fall asleep too early, hoping they could enjoy the large tub together once the kids were asleep. This idea kept Shouzou excited throughout his bath time. At lunchtime, everything looked delicious and expensive. Since this was a rare occasion, Ine poured some sake for Shouzou to drink. Meanwhile, Shota felt uncomfortable enjoying the feast because he felt guilty that Shouzou and Ine couldn't sleep together on their honeymoon because of him tagging along. Mino explained that she would have been too scared to come to Tokyo alone, and Ine reassured him that thanks to him, they arrived without any problems. When Shouzou asked the children to join them in a toast, they took 3 small sips as instructed, which seemed strange, but they complied. This practice was for married couples during their wedding ceremony, causing Ine to blush and confusing the children even more. Later, Mino said goodnight to Shota in the same room, acknowledging that he was right about Shouzou and Ine deserving to sleep together on their honeymoon. So Shota ended up sharing a room with Mino, who thought Ine and Shouzou must be cuddling in their bed now. But Ine was disappointed, as Shouzou had already fallen into a deep sleep. Back with Mino and Shota, Mino made a strange request. She asked Shota to call her grandma to understand how her grandmother felt. Shota played along, pretending to be Shouzou, and Mino pretended to be Ine. Shota accidentally called her by her name, which made Mino blush and ended the game in embarrassment. Ine regretted not bathing with Shouzou as planned, but understood that after drinking sake, he needed to rest. However, in Shouzou's dreams, the bath did become a reality. He dreamed he was with Ine in the open-air hot tub, and she called him a hentai for staring too much. When Ine offered Shouzou to touch her, he reached out, but ended up flipping the hourglass in his dream. He woke up the next day, returning to his elderly body. Ine was shocked because today was beach day, and she didn't expect Shouzou to choose his elderly form. They reached the beach, and Ine, with all her beauty, became the center of attention. With a muscular and burly Shouzou behind her, everyone stared even more. Shouzou challenged Shota to a swimming race, taunting that if Shota didn't win, he would never let him have Mino. Meanwhile, Ine was happy to see how much Mino had grown. Everyone on the beach watched the race between Shouzou and Shota. Shouzou zoomed across the water, ultimately winning the challenge. Later, under the shade, Shouzou asked Ine if she would wear the swimsuit he had bought, but she preferred her blouse, believing a bikini at her age would be ridiculous. Shouzou disagreed, thinking she would look attractive. He lamented that while everyone else had someone to show off to, he wanted the same. Ine reassured him that although they couldn't go to the beach together in the past due to her illnesses, things were different now. They were traveling as a couple, which made her very happy. She asked for a few minutes to wash off the sand and reveals she did wear the bikini underneath, but felt too embarrassed to show it. Returning to the beach in her dress, she still wouldn't wear the bikini because she didn't want other men to see her immodestly. Meanwhile, Mino seemed distracted by her phone. She was actually researching the sip Shouzou had made them take, discovering it was part of a wedding ceremony, which made her hyper-aware of Shota. Later, she played ping-pong with Shota, but they couldn't keep a rally going. They invited the grandparents to play, starting off for fun. However, after a few minutes, a group of people was amazed by the grandparents' skill. The ball moved so fast it was difficult to see. Under the beautiful night sky, the grandparents finally relaxed in the tub. Shouzou felt insecure about his elderly body, but Ine didn't mind at all. This amused Ine, especially when she imagined them both in their elderly forms flirting in the bath, which made the old couple laugh. Deep down, they hoped for a little more time to enjoy everything they couldn't when they were young. The next day at a temple, Shouzou was caught writing on the wish tablets and pretended to be clueless before running off. When Mino and Shota passed by the same tablets, Shota wished to join his favorite soccer team, while Mino wished for good grades. However, behind Mino's tablet, there was more text. Ine found Shouzou's wish. In my next life, I want to marry grandma again, which made her happy as it was the same message she had wished for. Continuing at the temple, they visit a huge tree. Mino told her grandparents about a legend that said every lap around the tree extended your life by 1 year. Prompted by this, the grandparents headed straight to the tree. Mino also mentioned that the tree granted wishes, so they all went together. Shota wished to return to the temple with Mino as more than friends. As their hands brushed, the grandparents already envisioning having great-grandchildren. In front of the tree, Mino remembered Shota's wish to become a professional footballer and his plan to return home to repay the land that raised him. Thinking about her future, Mino realized she had no clear plans and felt envious of her grandparents' life. While Shota slept, she apologized and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Back in the present, Shota noticed Mino staring at him. She assured him she was just imagining him as a grandpa, though she was really thinking about how flushed she felt after kissing him. Reflecting on the past, Shouzou had been forced to pay off his late father's debts. Despite this, Shouzou promised that when Ine healed from her illness and he earned enough money, they would go on a honeymoon. Although they never managed to save up and Ine's illness was never cured, Ine acknowledged that in a way, Shouzou kept his promise, and she was grateful for him. A boy named Satoshi is in the library, searching for his library card when Shiori comes over and hands it to him, saying she found it under the table. She notices he's holding a book about legends of becoming young again. They sit together, and Satoshi introduces himself and explains that there have been stories in the region about old people becoming young again every few hundred years. That's why he's reading the book. He learns that Shiori is studying medicine to become a doctor like her father. Shiori says that's half the reason. The other half is she wants to cure her grandma's sickness to repay her kindness, but she finds it too embarrassing to tell her. Unbeknownst to her, Shouzou is behind the bookshelf, listening and crying tears of joy. When Shiori returns to her grandparents' house, Ine and Shouzou embrace her tightly, which Shiori is surprised and doesn't understand why they are crying. Next, we see Yoshiaki angrily telling his parents that Mino has been coming home late and acting strangely. The grandparents realize it might be because of Shota. Yoshiaki worries she might have joined a bad group or met a bad boy. Ine tries to calm him down, saying Mino hasn't changed, which Yoshiaki rants about how today's youth are different because of the internet. Ine reassures him that Mino will be fine and reminds him that he was much more of a troublemaker at Mino's age. Yoshiaki apologizes and calms down. Later, Ine and Shouzou are working on the farm when two kids approach them, asking about the elderly couple who used to work there. Ine and Shouzou panic and quickly lie, saying the elderly couple is sick, so they are working in their place. The kids, though sad, thank them and leave. Ine tells Shouzou she wants to ease the kids' minds, so that night, she turns the hourglass in her dream, and they return to their elderly forms the next day. The kids are happy to see the elderly couple doing well. As Mino leaves for school, she says goodbye to Ine. When Ine enters the house, she notices Mino's lunchbox on the table. Determined, Ine gears up and rides her bike to catch up to Mino. Meanwhile, on the train, Mino realizes she forgot her lunchbox when she looks into her bag. Mino's friend tells her she can buy lunch from the school cafeteria, but Mino is sad because she rarely gets to Ine's lunch. Just then, her friend tells her to look out the window, and Mino sees her grandma riding a bike super fast, catching up to the train. Ine tells Mino to get off at the next stop so she can give her the lunchbox. And Ine becomes famous amongst her friends because of this. Elsewhere, Satoshi and Shiori are studying together. Shiori notices Satoshi talks in a strange way, which he explains he got from his grandmother. Shiori wonders why she's so interested in the way old people talk. She remembers Mino asking if she has a crush, to which Shiori denied. But when Mino suggests that maybe she likes someone calm like Shouzou, making her blush. Back in the present, Shiori changes the topic and asks the reason why he's researching people who become young again. Satoshi shows her a picture of his grandparents on his phone and tells her they became young again, thinking Shiori might not believe him. He then takes Shiori to visit his grandparents, Hajime and Setsu. Setsu tells Shiori they found a golden apple in the garden, ate it, and became young again the next day. Shiori is shocked. Hajime then asks about Satoshi's studies, and he says he's working hard to make them proud. After his parents' divorce, his grandparents became like his parents, and he wants to repay their kindness. Shiori thinks Satoshi is researching this for his family, just like she's trying to get into medical studies for her grandma. Shiori then tells them there are two people she wants them to meet, her own grandparents. The grandparents meet and are amazed to discover others who became young too. They sit together, drink, and have lively conversations, bonding over their shared experiences. Meanwhile, Shiori and Satoshi talk about their grandparents. Shiori wonders aloud if they will be as entertaining as their grandparents when they are old. She quickly gets flustered and clarifies she didn't mean it that way, saying it was just a metaphor. Later, Setsu and Ine chat about their husbands. Setsu recounts her first meeting with Hajime, explaining how he rescued her from some men who were bothering her at the inn she used to work at, and they eventually got married. She declares her husband is the best man in the world. Ine, not to be outdone, asserts her husband is the best, because he is very considerate. This leads to a playful rivalry, with each grandmother convinced her husband is the best. Ine decides to hold a 3-round competition to see who has the best husband. Shouzou tries to calm her down, saying it's just a friendly game, but Ine is serious. So Shouzou calls his friend Matsunosuke to be the judge. The first round is a tug of war. Each husband must pull the rope to reach where their wife stands. Both wives cheer on their husbands. Ine gets too excited because she never saw her husband trying this hard for her and reaches out to grab Shouzou's hand, but she moves out of the circle, causing their loss. The other couple wins the first round. The second round is a tasting challenge. The husbands must taste 2 dishes and choose which one was made by their wife. Both grandpas are confused because the dishes taste very similar. Shouzou cleverly realizes they didn't say he could only choose 1 dish, so he shouts that both dishes were made by Ine. He is correct, and they win the second round. Ine adorably feeds Shouzou in front of Setsu and Hajime, but hilariously refuses when Shouzou tries to feed her back. The third round tests the husband's intelligence. Setsu suggests arithmetic, which makes Shouzou nervous because he's bad at it. Matsunosuke then asks what the purpose of the competition is, and wonders if the winning husband will be considered the best. Both women get flustered. Ine explains they just wanted to know how good their husband is. Matsunosuke gets angry, saying that love can't be compared, and that each woman loves her husband in her own way. Shouzou interrupts, saying his wife is right behind him. She tells him she loves him for speaking such a moving speech. Everyone then enjoys a meal together, forgetting about the silly competition. Later, Shiori asks Ine to teach her how to cook. Ine starts listing traditional dishes, but Shiori says she doesn't want to cook old people food. She wants to make chicken karage. Ine asks why, and Shiori explains she'll be studying at the library all day on the weekend and wants to prepare food. Shiori adds that even though she doesn't like greasy food, she wants Ine to teach her how to cook it. Ine gets a bit sad imagining Shiori as a married adult, knowing she might not be around to see it. Later, Shiori shares the food she cooked with Satoshi at the library because she actually just wants to cook for Satoshi. That night, Ine and Shouzou watch a horror movie together. Shouzou thinks the special effects are great, but finds it funny that people scream when a ghost comes out of the TV. He asks Ine for her opinion, and she quickly pulls out a prayer bead and starts praying. She even puts salt near the TV and covers it with a sheet, hilariously claiming she's not scared at all. When it's time to sleep, Shouzou falls asleep easily, but Ine can't close her eyes, seeing ghost on the wooden ceiling. Suddenly, she gets up and decides to lay in her husband's arms, praying to calm down, and finally falls asleep. The next day, Shouzou's arm feels numb, but Ine claims she knows nothing. Later, Mino asks what they're doing near a small tree. They tell her that Hajime gave them a young apple tree seedling. Planting a new apple tree now is complicated because it takes a lot of work and time, but they didn't want to throw it away. Mino remembers a conversation she had with Shota about what dream she wants to fulfill after graduating, so she asks her grandparents to give her the seedling. Shouzou emphasizes that apple trees need a lot of care and can live as long as a human. Mino promises she will handle everything. She's been thinking a lot about the future and imagines having a farm could be really cool. To take care of everything involved in this dream, she needs to learn how to care for things like the seedling. They're proud of Mino, who confesses that seeing someone she admires pursuing their goals made her feel like she needs to go after something too. Speaking of that person, Mino calls Shota to help her tomorrow morning. Shota helps Mino plant the seedling, and she likes the idea of the apple tree living until they become grandparents themselves. Mino recalls that her grandparents planted an apple tree to celebrate their wedding, and this thought brings a strange sensation to her. Shota says he doesn't know what his future will bring, but asks if he can come back here when he's an adult. That's if Mino isn't married and living somewhere else. Mino asserts that she will wait for him. Spying on the conversation, Shouzou and Ine are already planning to have a feast to celebrate, as if they're already married. A few years ago, the old couple planned to have a yomiya, a traditional summer festival for the local shrine's deity. Now, the shrine is all set up for the event, and Mino is trying on a beautiful yukata. Seeing Ine not wearing one, Mino calls her mom to borrow hers for Ine. Shortly after, Shouzou arrives home and is amazed by how cute Ine looks. During the festival night, Shouzou is drinking with his friends and plans to leave, but his friend pours another round. Meanwhile, Ine feels sad, thinking Shouzou will stay up late drinking while she's alone. Suddenly, Shouzou appears in front of Ine, and she brightens up. Walking through the crowd, Ine sees a couple sharing sweets and Shouzou asks if she wants one. She refuses, but Shouzou insists and offers her a strawberry sweets. She happily accepts. Later, Ine plays a shooting game and headshot a stuffed bear that reminds her of Shouzou, but the bear doesn't fall. The owner knows the only way to knock it down is by shooting it rapidly several times. Shouzou steps in to help, timing his shots with Ine. They manage to knock down the bear and win the prize, impressing everyone around. We later learn that Shouzou was a former hunting club member, which is why he is so good at shooting targets. They plan to sit down somewhere and take a break. In Ine's dream, she thinks about how when two people love each other, one dies first, leaving the other behind to feel overwhelming loneliness. She sees the hourglass and hears a voice warning her she has only 7 days left to live. Waking up from her nap next to Shouzou, she tries to act normal, but Shouzou notices she looks pale. Surprisingly, Shouzou asks if Ine heard any voices in her dream, because he did too, warning him he'll last the year. Which Ine gets closer to Shouzou and reveals she has a week left to live. Shouzou wraps his arm around her, and she shares that despite being sickly for as long as she can remember, she feels blessed to have lived so long. Shouzou, on the other hand, wishes for a miracle. Shouzou's prayer is answered as a glow shoots up to the sky and a balance scale descends, enveloping the couple. Shouzou is sucked into a dream with Ine sleeping in his arms. A voice introduces itself as Tochigami, the deity of the shrine. She promises to lend her power to fulfill Shouzou's wish as gratitude for them cleaning the sacred place that had been abandoned. However, she can't create life or extend a human's lifespan. Without a second thought, Shouzou gives half of his lifespan to Ine. She wakes up, not knowing how long she had been asleep. Shouzou says it was just 15 minutes, as if nothing had happened. Ine reveals that in her dream, her hourglass gained sand out of nowhere. She says it's better this way because they don't have to count how much life they have left. They promise not to reveal their lifespans again. Shouzou reflects that he could never live without Ine and hopes they leave together when the time comes. They enjoy the fireworks, capturing as many beautiful moments as they can. Meanwhile, Satoshi tells Shiori a story about the shrine. Long ago, a happy couple lived there, but a drought caused hunger and diseases, killing the villagers. The couple gave water, the most important thing, to the sacred tree, but their wish wasn't granted, and they died. Days later, golden fruit sprouted from the tree, curing diseases and satisfying hunger. According to legend, the couple's wishing power still flows through the land. Shiori, annoyed at the history lesson, plans to go home, reflecting on her desire for a happy couple life like her grandparents. Satoshi catches up with her, offering 2 chocolate bananas as an apology, and she accepts, thinking it was silly to get mad. A week later, Ine realizes she's still alive and starts crying because she was scared. Despite accepting death, she couldn't bear the thought of Shouzou being alone. Shouzou hugs her, asserting that they need to live life as they always have, even if the day they depart is tomorrow. Halloween is coming up, and Mino asks Shouzou and Ine what they will dress up as. Shouzou thinks dress up is for kids, but they have to do it because Shota is coming to hang out too. On Halloween day, Mino dresses up as a witch, and Shota dresses up as an angry bear. Mino is excited to show her grandparents her costume, thinking it's better than her clueless grandparents. But when they open the door, they are stunned to see two scary creatures greet them, and Mino ended up fainting from the shock. At night, two men are driving through Shouzou's farm in their golden sports car. They chat about a K-truck around the farm that beat all the bikes in a race. They call it the Demon K-truck. The blonde driver is skeptical and throws out his cigarette when they pass by a K-truck. Shouzou is inside the truck and gets furious seeing someone litter on his farm. He plans to chase them down. Meanwhile, Ine explains to Shiori that Shouzou is out patrolling the farm for thieves. Ine says that since his patrol started, the biker gang hasn't been showing up, and she doesn't know why. Back to the two men, the driver plans to head home having not found the Demon K-truck. Surprisingly, when they look behind them, a K-truck appears. The driver drifts around the corner, thinking this would shake off the K-truck, but Shouzou is determined and also drifts around the corner. The blonde driver is shocked because he didn't know K-trucks could drift like that. The guy finally realizes this is the Demon K-truck they're looking for. Despite him going full throttle in his sports car, the K-truck is slowly gaining on them, making him question what's under the hood of the K-truck. We then get a flashback to Shouzou picking up his K-truck at his friend Tetsuji's motor shop. Tetsuji tells Shouzou that he changed the engine of his K-truck as a surprise. Tetsuji used to work on sports cars, but now he only works on farm trucks. So he thought he would bring some of his old passion back by working on Shouzou's truck. Back to the race. Shouzou and the blonde driver are coming up to a sharp turn. Shouzou uses this turn to get inside and pass the blonde driver with ease. Now defeated, both men in the golden sports car vow never to come here again, fearing the Demon K-truck. Later, Ine sees two men on the news talking about the Demon K-truck around the farm, and Shouzou pretends not to know anything about it. After that, Matsunosuke is teaching basic airgun skills to prevent crop damage from wild animals around the farm. But all the women flock to the handsome Shouzou instead. Because of this, the women become really good at shooting air guns, surprising Matsunosuke. Then it starts to rain, and Mino and Shota run to the local shrine to take shelter until the rain stops. Shota gives his jacket to Mino to keep her warm, and Mino appreciates the kind gesture. Suddenly, a lightning strike startles Mino, and she grabs onto Shota. Mino then plans to call her grandparents to pick them up, but there is no signal. They are shocked when they notice the ghostly image of Shouzou and Ine sitting beside them. Mino calls out to them, but the two images don't seem to notice Mino and Shota. Both Ine and Shouzou say this will probably be their last day meeting each other because their parents are rejecting their relationship. Ine then pushes Shouzou down, saying that maybe if she acts first, their parents will have no choice. She proceeds to have some spicy time with Shouzou, and Mino quickly covers Shota's eyes from this spicy scene between Ine and Shouzou. When the rain finally stops, Mino and Shota reach her grandparents' home, where they are given towels to dry off. Mino asks Ine if she hung out at the shrine a lot, and Ine replies that she met Shouzou there, so she went there often. This makes Ine wonder if Shouzou told Mino about their spicy time at the shrine, but Shouzou has no clue. After taking a shower, Mino sits beside Shota, both feeling extremely awkward after witnessing the spicy scene. Mino recalls a conversation with Ine, where Ine explained that during her generation, many things were set by their parents. She advised Mino to enjoy life to the fullest and do whatever she wishes, because her generation is much freer now. Back in the present, Mino thanks Shota for comforting her when the lightning struck at the shrine, and leans on his shoulder, preparing to tell him something. But then Mino stands up because she hears Shouzou and Ine sneaking outside the room, trying to eavesdrop on them. She closes the door on them, and they hilariously explain they were just trying some ninja moves they saw on TV. Then we see Ine taking the local train, and the train driver tells her that people now drive cars, and trains will slowly die off with no one taking them. But Ine invites all her friends to the train station the next day. And the train driver is happy that there are still some locals who appreciate the old train. While driving in a blizzard, Shouzou notices a traffic jam ahead and has a plan to help. Using his 60 years of knowledge driving through snowy roads around town, Shouzou leads the traffic jam safely to the town under low visibility. Ine feels proud to have a reliable man like Shouzou. The next day, Ine is breaking the frozen ice outside the house and couldn't stop sweating. Right, so she takes off some layers and keeps working, planning to clear the ice before Shouzou comes home. When Shouzou returns, he blushes, seeing the beautiful Ine radiating with energy as she works on the snow. A few days before New Year's Eve, Yoshiaki and his wife drop by to help with the mochi making. Yoshiaki, feeling nostalgic and a bit prideful, tries to do all the heavy lifting himself, despite his wife's warnings that he's not as young as he used to be. Shouzou steps in, suggesting that Yoshiaki leave the heavy work to the more capable, subtly hinting that Yoshiaki is just trying to show off in front of his wife. Yoshiaki acknowledges the strength of Shouzou and Ine, who, despite their age, handle the tasks effortlessly, making him feel a bit embarrassed. Shouzou's talents don't stop there. He builds an impressive snowman that captivates Mino. Motivated by her compliment, Shouzou spends the next day creating a giant snow bear, earning more praise from Mino. Without taking a break, he asks Mino about Kosuke's favorite character, which she reveals is the Black Phoenix Dragon from a card game. Later, when the kids arrive at their grandfather's house, they're greeted by a massive snow dragon in the yard. Little Kosuke is thrilled, and Shouzou finally takes a well-deserved rest. The next day, Ine welcomes more family members, including her sister Tsuru and the Takahiro family. Kosuke quickly invites Shiori to play Karuta with him and Mino. Tsuru, watching them, is reminded of her own childhood games of Karuta and surprises everyone by joining in. When Shiori reads a poem, Tsuru, with incredible speed, picks up the correct card, leaving the kids in awe and making her feel young again. Kosuke later tells Ine about Tsuru's lightning-fast moves, but Ine thinks he is just kidding. After everyone ate the New Year's feast, Kosuke offers to massage Shouzou and Ine's shoulders, surprising his father since he's never done that before. Shiori, suspicious of Kosuke's sudden good boy act, watches closely. Shouzou then gives Shiori a New Year's money gift to spend as she likes, prompting Kosuke to try his luck with his grandfather. However, instead of cash, he receives a book gift card, realizing his plan didn't quite work out as expected. On New Year's Eve, the kids are deep into their video games, the men are sipping sake, and the women have their own little girls' club going on. Kaoru, Shiori's mom, confides that she's been super strict with her daughter about her studies, causing a rift between them. Ine, ever the wise woman, advises her to treat her children with kindness, especially during tough times. Ine reassures Kaoru that Shiori knows her mom is just trying to help, making Kaoru tears up at her comforting words. Kaede, a nurse, takes the chance to seek advice about a rude patient who constantly orders her around. Ine tells her to be assertive and confident, setting limits on the rude behavior. Kaede also starts crying, grateful for the golden advice. Ine then looks around at all the women and drops some final wisdom, noting that while mothers are always seen as strong, it's okay to cry sometimes. This turns the gathering into a heartfelt tear fest. Just as Shouzou walks in from his drinking session, only to see all the women hugging and crying around Ine. They receive 400 New Year cards from townsfolk, feeling like their own old people version of social media. Ine and Shouzou respond to every single one, sending out a photo of themselves wishing for an even better year ahead. They can't stop answering phone calls from grateful townsfolk. When the festivities end, the family gets ready to leave the grandparents' house. Kosuke throws a fit, clinging to Shouzou and not wanting to leave. Ine soothes him with a teddy bear, saying it's like they're always with him. Shouzou pinky promises he'll see Kosuke again soon, and the boy trusts his grandpa. But when the little boy leaves, it's Shouzou who breaks down in tears. The next day, Shouzou and Ine return to their usual routine. Today, Mino and Shota come to help at the orchard. They learn how to tend the fields, and Shouzou praises Shota's quick learning. Modestly, Shota replies that he still has much to learn. Playfully, the old man asks how things are going between him and Mino. Embarrassed, Shota says things are going well, while Shouzou mentions that his grandfather keeps nagging about when they'll get married. Meanwhile, Ine asks Mino if she's really okay spending her school-free day helping out. Mino assures her that she promised to take care of the apple trees she planted, but Ine teases that Mino just wants to spend more time with Shota. When Shota asks Mino to help with some branches, she blushes and asks him not to use her first name in front of his grandparents. Shouzou then appears and leaves some branches for the two young people to handle. As they take a break, Shouzou and Ine watch them with pride and reassurance. Ine comments that the view is beautiful today, and Shouzou quickly replies that it isn't as beautiful as his wife, charming her with his riz. Later, as the two sit together under a tree, the weather is so nice that they begin to feel sleepy. They start reminiscing about how far their family has come. They celebrate Shiori's efforts to enter medical school, thanks to Takahashi's private lessons. They've heard that the Shiori and Takahashi families are getting closer, so Ine left a basket of apples at their door to celebrate. They remember Akemi's children have all gone their separate ways, giving her more freedom. Yoshiaki has found a new job and is excited about it. They don't know what tomorrow will bring, but things seem to be heading in a good direction for everyone. Next week, Ine and Shouzou plan to participate in a gateball tournament with their friends, and during the summer vacation, their family will come to visit, with little Kosuke having grown even more. Shouzou then asks Ine what wish she would like to see fulfilled if she could make one. She thinks about it and concludes that her wish has already come true, and Shouzou agrees. Suddenly, they return to their old bodies as they decide what they will do tomorrow, while the sand in the hourglass runs out. All their precious memories of experiences, people, and places flash in their minds as they hold hands. Sometime later, Mino and Shota arrive with lunch and see the grandparents resting under the tree, worried they might catch a cold. Not knowing they have peacefully drifted away. 50 years later, we see an old grandpa rushing to call his wife to look at the tree they planted because it bore a beautiful golden apple. The old man asks if they should place the fruit on the altar or eat it themselves. They pause for a moment to decide, and it is revealed that the old couple is Shota and Mino,